Hi everyone, I'm super excited to host Mike VanSickel, CEO of Iron Sheepdog, a comprehensive trucking technology solution company. Thanks a lot for being on the show, Mike.
Very excited to be here. Look forward to speaking with you a little bit.
Mike, take us back to your teenage and college days to building Iron Sheepdog. Like, what were some career highlights?
That I can share. Yeah, this was not a typical path for me. I'd in college, put myself through school and was working to go to law school. I'd taken the LSATs, and construction was not the direction I thought I was going. I met an individual. He convinced me that he needed more business people and less engineers, and that if I could learn the language of construction, I'd be very successful. So that was in 1996. Spent 2 years almost in an apprenticeship type program, so was able to touch every aspect of the industry, from operations, manufacturing, administrative support. And actually, one of the first things I did was on the logistics side, was dispatching freight. So, whether it's barge, rail cars, or trucks, I kind of was introduced to the whole industry through that. And looking back, it's interesting to see where I've wound up. I had no real appreciation for how that was going to impact me later in life, but as my career evolved and I took on a lot of different roles, I always kept coming back to material movement and the individuals responsible for that.
And looking back, are there any things you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah, I mean, there's always things you wish you'd done differently, but I've grown to appreciate that even the mistakes make you who you are, right? And if I had changed one thing differently, I may not be where I am today, right? And so I've got a beautiful family, and I'm own and co-founder of a company that I feel is really changing the industry. So I'm always careful to look back and wish things were different, because even the things you may have regretted at the time help shape who you are today.
And like learning from your journey, are there any expensive mistakes or lessons you learned hard way, which you could understand?
Yeah, managing people as you move up in your career is something I think is underappreciated. I've made plenty of mistakes. Fortunately, I've had a lot of good managers along the way and good leaders of organizations I've worked for that were quick to coach and mentor through those. Again, a lot of life lessons. One of the first individuals I worked for, at the time, he told me, "Listen, if you do a couple things. One, you work hard, and two, you're honest, and this industry is all about respect and kind of earning your reputation as you move along. Some of your best friends 20, 30 years from now are going to be people in the industry, not your current college friends or high school friends at the time." And I didn't believe that then, but he was right. So 30 years later, I feel like I've made every effort to be upfront and honest with things, good or bad. And I've got a whole network of people I consider very good friends in the industry.
Amazing. In the early days of Anshub Dog, like, can you take us that moments where the idea and the seed was born?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wasn't looking to start a software company. I really had no desire or appreciation for what would be involved in that. It was out of a necessity to get data faster. 7 years ago when we started this, and even today, most of the logistics around trucking of material is managed the same way that I was introduced to it in 1996. We didn't have cell phones. Most of the industry in 2026 still operates on paper tickets and phone calls and texts and emails. So I was a executive vice president for a region of a large multinational, and we used a bidding software to bid projects. We used a project management software to recognize our daily costs and production. The only thing I couldn't get daily was trucking. And so when you would go into the administrative part of our office, you would see multiple people trying to collect tickets and reconcile tickets and apply costs, which would take weeks. And I just became fascinated with how antiquated this was and the opportunity that I thought existed if we could only streamline this. So I really started to get interested in why wasn't there adoption in the industry for technology? And that's where the idea was born for Iron Sheepdog.
And from idea to building the first MVP,
Okay.
How was it like finding people, testing?
Right. Well, the company I was with, we ran on a daily basis, 100 to 150 trucks. Some of those were by the hour, by the load, by the ton. So all different types of materials. We owned about 30 of those trucks. I wanted to divest of those assets because our cost to run those trucks was about 15% higher than using a third party hauler. But you didn't have the transparency, and there's a little bit of illusion of reliability if you own the asset. But when you add in depreciation, the overhead liability, it makes sense to use a third party hauler. It was kind of funny. We had two brokers that owned a couple trucks, but then ran about another 10 to 15 owner operators under them. And I went to him and I said, hey, today's your lucky day. I'm going to divide up all of our trucking. So I'm going to help you guys grow your business by about 10 times what you're currently doing with us. And you can thank me now. And they both told me they didn't want it. And I said, that's fascinating. So I don't think you heard me. I'm going to grow your business and you're telling me you don't want it. And they said, yes. I said, help me understand that. They said, well, you're really tough to work for. And I said, interesting. Help me understand that. And they said, well, it's myself and my brother or my wife or one individual. And we do all this current trucking for you. And every time there's a change in the situation, plant goes down. You want us to go from running by the hour to running by the ton. Any kind of change like that, I get a call from someone on your team, and then I've got to document it on this piece of paper. And then at the end of the week, all these trucks have to drive to my house or my garage. I have to collect all the tickets the same way you collect them. And then I got to spend my whole weekend going back through my notes and adjusting tickets so I can generate an invoice to give you because you want to be invoiced every week. And then when I provide that invoice and it doesn't match yours, you short pay it. So I have a cash flow problem now because I still have to write checks for all these trucks that work for me. And so, no, we don't want more of that. And I said, I understand. So I went looking for a solution for them that was built for third party haulers. There was plenty in the over the road trucking space, tractor trailers, but there was nothing built for third party haulers. There was a lot being built for contractors to force third party haulers to use a platform, but that didn't make sense to me because I didn't see how we were going to replace paper with another problem, which would be, okay, now this broker has 15 different apps on their phone and they got to remember which one to use when they're working. It would be, I always compare it to Uber Eats, right? It would be like every restaurant having their own app as opposed to using one platform that everybody uses to deliver their food in that case, or material in our case. So when we couldn't find one, I went to a gentleman I'd worked with. I had a really strong financial background. We'd become friends, done some development deals together. I pitched the idea that I wanted to develop this first app and then web-based platform for trucking companies. He told me I was crazy. And that's exactly why I went to him, because I knew he would find the reasons it wasn't going to work. And when he and eventually our CTO that I knew as well could not find reasons it wouldn't work, we decided to do a family and friends in our own raise, and we were off and running. And we had the trucks to run because I was running trucks every day. He owned a company that ran trucks every day, so we were able to spend about 2 years perfecting it.
That's such an insightful story. And the way you navigated this is help me understand. It's going deeper into the core problem. Like from my understanding, like selling solutions to these people could be also challenging. The UI, UX, and customer interface has to be super easy to build. Like, what were some objections in terms of like sometimes the solution is perfect, but still people don't adapt. So how do you navigate those kind of situations?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I think you really have to understand your customer. And what I've seen in the industry is everybody's forgotten the individual driving the truck. You see other platforms out there that, for example, like a job board, right? Well, it seems simple that if I'm a contractor or a material supplier, I just post the job and whoever accepts it accepts it. But when you do that, you're disrupting the ecosystem. You're cutting out the individual that currently manages that. So you immediately create some friction and apprehension about wanting to use your product. The other piece of it is you can't go from an industry that's running the same way it was running in the mid 90s to where you want to go like that. There has to be an adoption and a gradual phasing over time. And so what we spent a lot of time doing was like, let's work the problem from the bottom up, not from the top down. Like you didn't have to convince us that, we're a $300 million division of a company that I want better data. I had to convince an individual name, Beaver or Butterbean or El Jefe to use an app, right? So what do they want? They want to be paid quickly. They want a very simple app, Uber-esque, right? From, this is your job, this is the rate. They want to reduce the amount of administrative burden they have, and they want consistent work. Like if you can do those things well, and it seems simple, but sometimes my CTO always tells me sometimes building something simple is the hardest thing, right? And he's right. And so that we really focused on building a very simple app that the drivers wanted to be participative. And then the web-based platform. And once you start getting really good data, it's amazing what you can do with it. But it all starts with good data. And to have good data, you got to work the problem from the bottom up.
And what's the right channel to reach out to these people? Because I'm not sure they'll be active on LinkedIn, or is cold calling the best approach, email, events?
Yeah, I mean, the best channel is to go to the people that are currently using them and ask them who they like and who they would stay away from, right? Again, it's maybe an old school approach, but it's really difficult to find data that's accurate in this industry because there's not a standard of measurement that everybody utilizes, right? And so, we would obviously we knew a lot of individuals in the industry having been in it. We go to large producers, large contractors that are utilizing trucking companies, and we would talk to them about, who do you like and what do you wish they would have, be able to provide you. And then we go spend time with them. We internally, what we call this is high touch, high tech. Again, I'm a firm believer that this really needs to be a partnership with a lot of these small businesses. They don't know, there's a level of trust you have to build, right? You're asking for full visibility on their business, and most of them are very reluctant to that at first because, that's the kind of thing that could expose them, to a competitive disadvantage. So earning that in the beginning was really tough, but the more companies you help. We just held our third user conference, where we fly in individuals from all over the country. Now it's easy. Don't trust me. I'll just pick up the phone and call one of these companies and let them tell you, is it better running with us or running or not? And, we have very, very low churn. Everybody's pretty successful on the platform.
It's amazing. For the founders who might be interested in solving solution for this space, what would be a playbook you would recommend?
A playbook, where this is heading is interesting, right? Like there's a lot of different solutions out there, whether they're estimating, whether they're solutions that manage the plant and the inventory, whether they're solutions that manage the production rates on jobs. The introduction to AI into a lot of this is really exciting for us as it relates to like dynamic dispatching and really getting the efficiency up on the logistics of moving material. I think there's two things that I constantly see that are going to be a challenge to the industry, and I hope I'm answering your question correctly. But there's going to be a challenge with integration, right? With getting all these different platforms that people have kind of taken specific aspects of the problem and worked on to where you get that data flow to get really efficient. And then there's going to be a cultural shift that I think is going to be something that needs to be addressed. I walked into a room to talk about our solution. It was about a month ago, and there was 25 people in the room, and 15 people on this side were all under the age of 32, 33, and then the 10 decision makers on this side were all my age. And so before I talked about our solution, I was like, I'm just curious, who in here utilizes AI daily? And everybody under the age of 32 raises their hand. And like two people over here raise their hand. And I said, well, not only do you use it in the course of your work? Well, the two people in leadership put their hand down. Everybody else kept their hand up. And so I was curious by that, and I started asking, what are you using it for? And, these are, project superintendents and foremen and project administrators or engineers. and they're trying to write code and to do different things to make their jobs easier. So what I told them, I was like, look, what we're about ready to present, I mean, does that have an interest to you? And I mean, of course, all of them are like, yes. So I was like, all right, well, I don't need to convince you guys that the world's changing. I got to convince your leadership that it's changing and they don't even recognize it, right? And so that cultural shift from individuals that have been in this industry for a long time that haven't seen a lot of change or very slow, methodical change, getting them to appreciate that this thing's moving faster than they maybe currently understand, and to get ahead of it and embrace it and to utilize those individuals that may be new to the organization and don't fully appreciate the complexity to it, but bring real value just because of their willingness to look at new and exciting ways to perform the work.
Every time you are sharing the story, it gives so much unique insight on how you even operate the business and do sales. Is like very unique and different way where how you got the
I'll take that as a
decision made.
compliment.
Yeah, it's inspiring.
Yeah.
And I'm also wondering, like, are there any other like things how you operate the business which we can learn from?
This is a very our team's a very tight team. It started out with a few people and we're up, pushing 40 or 40 plus now. A lot of them have ownership. Most of them have ownership in the company. That was really important to us. We've been through a couple raises, and I was asked to speak at an event last year, and it was interesting. One of the founders got up there and someone asked them the question. They said, what are the two things you what are the two things you miss the most? And the answer really stuck with me. He thought for a minute and he said, they're the same thing. And he said, it's the people. He goes, I miss, or what are the things you miss the most? And then it's two questions. What are the thing you miss the most, and what is the thing you're most proud of? And he said, it's the same answer. It's the people. He said, the thing I miss the most is the people, working with them on the problem every day. He said, the thing I'm most proud of is also the people, because I made quite a few millionaires when we sold the company. And so this is not easy. This is it's a very difficult challenge. Going from the way the industry currently runs to where we want to go. And so we have, individuals on this team, like this lady Brandy that runs our customer support, that, like, without her really exemplifying that high touch approach, we would not be successful. It doesn't matter how great the technology gets. And the same goes for the engineering team and the sales team and the customer success team. It's just a team, right? I say that with complete sincerity. It takes the whole team to move this thing forward.
If you have more time and bandwidth, what are the problems you would be interested in solving?
I don't know. I'm a dump truck guy. I think I better stay in my lane. But I see plenty of things that I think could be better, but there's probably better suited people to address them than me. Again, I'm excited about what we do. Think about this, and I take a lot of pride in seeing these businesses that, again, have trusted us and how successful they are now. And they'll come to our office or call and check in occasionally, and it's fun to be part of and exciting to see that you have some small part of watching this industry evolve.
Any part in the trucking technology space you think is oversaturated and area of undersaturation?
Oh, again, I think it's just an appreciation for, like, the evolution that has to happen. Like, I'm a firm believer that, at some point there's going to be autonomous trucks running around. I mean, when you talk about articulating trucks and mines and stuff, that already happens. So the technology's there. I always say that it's kind of this crawl, walk, run approach. You can't start at the end. You got to start where you are. And so to really accelerate that, I think everybody's got to be included in that. And um, that individual in the truck's a big part of the whatever this looks like in the future being successful. And if they are not included in it, it's going to take longer, and it's not going to be as successful.
I'm gonna do a rapid fire round. You have less than 5 seconds to answer, and you gotta keep it super brief.
Let's go.
What's the travel city or country in your bucket list?
Been there a bunch of times. Would love to go back. Italy.
A book which made a big impact in your life?
Drive by Daniel Pink. There's a concept in there called ROW, results-oriented work environment, that I try to incorporate here at the office.
Your favorite restaurant?
Oh, I'm a big foodie. My favorite one at the moment is a place I ate at last night called Waypoint. The food was excellent.
3 words your best friend would describe you as.
One word, crazy. I'd probably be more than one of my friends. Yeah, I've always been a little bit of a risk taker. Risk taker.
Got it. Your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? I go to Private Ryan or Braveheart. I kind of go back and forth between those two.
If you were to teach a course at a university, what would be the course about?
That's a great question. I think leadership. Like I'm fascinated by people. I love building teams. They're so complex. The code behind the software is obviously there's better people in our company than I to explain that, but it's very systematic, right? People are there's a lot of variables, and so I'm fascinated by that.
Best piece of advice you have received till date?
Piece of advice I've received to date. I think it's just to slow down and enjoy what you're doing. I have a bad habit of getting ahead of myself and thinking too far into the future and not appreciating what we're doing today. And that was one of the first gentlemen I worked with, and it's rung true through my whole career.
Awesome. It was lovely hosting you, Mike. Had a great time interviewing you.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. Look forward to hopefully talking again. And if you ever want to talk more about dump trucks, you know the guy to reach out to.
Definitely.
All right.